Hello, everybody. My name is Brent Friedland with Rootstock Racing. For those of you who have raced with us before, welcome back, and thank you for coming out for the biggest Stockville event to date. We're really excited to have everybody. And for those of you that are new to Rootstock Racing, thanks for taking a chance on us, and we are looking forward to hosting you this upcoming weekend. So this is the pre-race briefing for this year's Stockville. And I'm going to hit on a number of points that we have to share with you ahead of time. Please make sure that you have watched this or that your teammates have watched this, ideally everybody that you are racing with. Hopefully we'll have a chance to review this, as this will help speed things up on Saturday morning and give you more time with the maps. So in no particular order, here are some key things for you to be thinking about. First of all, I want to touch on parking for Saturday morning and the rest of the weekend. I'm going to share my screen with you briefly here to help you visualize the parking situation. So this is, again, Big Spring State Park. You are going to be coming in on Route 274 one way or another and turning into the park. You can see that there is, let me erase the arrows here. That didn't work. Hold on one second. You can see that there is this kind of parking roundabout here. We have been asked to park on these two rightmost driveways. We will try to have a volunteer there, but it might be early. It's easy to miss some of the vehicles coming in. We will also send out a map with this information in our pre-race briefing. But if you could just kind of take note of that ahead of time, that would be great. We are going to ask everybody to try to be especially aware of parking space. So really try to park tight. And ideally also, if you can carpool with your teammates or even with other teams to really cut down on the amount of space we need to take up, that would be ideal. We are most likely going to be working out of pavilion number 1. We're actually hoping that all the pavilions will be open that morning in terms of space for people to kind of spread out. That might give you some space outside of your cars. So that's kind of a visualization of what things are going to look like on Saturday morning. Traditionally, we do not have a key box for this event. Part of the reason is that while we want everybody to ideally get back to the finish on their own, some years we do have to transport people back to the finish. And sometimes, there's volunteers out and about doing different things, and it can be hard to coordinate keys. So we ask you to plan to carry your car key with you on the course, just in case for some reason you need to head back early. Okay, so I think that takes care of parking. Second of all, we are going to also be sending you a medical form. This is to cover things like allergies, medications, other underlying health conditions, so that we have that information in case something goes wrong on the course. We have a great paramedic and woofer on site to help with medical emergencies. Hopefully we will not have anything serious, and hopefully nothing at all. But in a worst case scenario where somebody actually might be unconscious or unable to respond, we would like to have that information just in case. If you don't have any underlying health issues at all, if you're not on any medications, if you don't have any allergies, you don't necessarily have to fill this form out, but please take this seriously and take a moment to send it out. We will send that out in our update as well. As for mid-camp this year, in 6 years of running the Stockville, it looks like this might be the coldest overnight Stockville we've had. Looks like pretty good weather for the race itself, at least from a racing perspective, but it does look like it's going to be pretty cold overnight. So please take that seriously. Don't shirk on your clothing. It is absolutely essential that you have ground insulation to make sure that you can stay warm overnight in your sleeping bag. And then obviously having a sleeping bag or liner or some kind of system there that's actually going to be adequate for temperatures that I believe look like they could be as low as in the 30s overnight. Okay, so please do not shirk on that. We have definitely had racers get up on Sunday morning in warmer weather than that and decide that they've had enough. And if that is you, that's great. We will do everything we can to get you back to your car as quickly as possible. But be aware that we have to attend to mid camp and everything that's going on there. So you may end up being quite cold in the field for a while. And if you had just gotten yourself moving, you would have warmed up faster than sitting around and waiting for a couple of hours to get back to the car. So make sure you are comfortable and that you have adequate layers and everything for the event. On that note, please come prepared with a tarp, a ground tarp this year for mid-camp. We are having some last minute unexpected discussions about exactly where the Stockville site is going to be this year. We may need to shift it a little bit. And we want to make sure that people are prepared with a ground cloth and, again, adequate ground insulation and a ground pad so that you can sleep comfortably. We're not worried about this development, but we may have to do kind of a last minute course shuffle that was unexpected due to some kind of changes at the forest. So just be prepared with that. And the ground tarp is in case we end up in an area where there's a potential higher likelihood for some kind of softer, even damper ground. So come with a tarp as well. On that note, just to kind of clarify what we do and don't do with gear at this event, as we have stated, we will transport your tents and your stoves to Stockville. For those that haven't done this event before, we've shared this many times before, but I'll just share it again. The inspiration for this event comes from the OMM races in the UK, the mountain marathons, which are really amazing events. I highly recommend, if you ever have the itch to travel and go overseas to do something like this, do it. They are shorter events, but our structure is based on these events. And they actually require you to carry absolutely everything for the whole event with you. And when we started the Stockville, one of the things we wanted to do was make it a little bit more accessible for folks that don't have ultra light everything. Going out for a weekend and racing with like a full pack of everything can become a bit daunting. We had some people that just didn't have access to really nice $600 2-pound tents, but they had a big family tent that would work. So we wanted to make it more accessible. So we will transport your tents and stoves, but just a couple of notes. That is really all we are transporting. So you need to carry all of your clothes, all of your food. You can't sneak like your sleeping pad into your tent. This is definitely an honor system type request, but please take that seriously to keep the integrity of the event serious and intact. If we have too many people bending these rules, like the thing we'll either have to do is really start checking everything, which we honestly don't want to do, or we will simply have to change the event standards and require you to carry everything. The intention of the stove is ideally to have it be like a proper backpacking type stove of some sort, whether it's one of the kind of single boiler pots attached to the stove, or a small MSR stove, whatever it might be. We'd prefer not to end up with a ton of really big, like double burner car camping type stoves. Okay. So stoves, the fuel that goes with the stoves, and tents, that's what we will carry on our end. You need to carry your food, your pots, your sleeping gear, all of that with you. Okay. No iron pots and frying pans and things like that, please. Okay. Maps. This year we're looking at a mix of 11 by 17 and 8.5 by 11. The maps will be printed on water resistant paper. I still strongly encourage everybody to have some kind of map case system, whether it's Ziploc bags or like a standard map case. I think all of the maps this year are 1 to 24,000 in terms of scale. We are shifting over from Terrain Navigator Plus mapping software to actually play around with CalTopo a bit. you can still expect the standard USGS topographic maps, but there may be some road overlays and such on those as well, which include some additional trails and such. This is a huge note. Every time we say this, there's still somebody that doesn't actually like take this to heart. We are going to be providing you with a supplementary map or two. These are the DCNR forest maps. And these maps do have a few trails that do not appear on the USGS topographic map. Some of them do, but some do not. This is part of the challenge. It is somewhat intentional to add a bit of an additional navigational challenge where you have to kind of work with a couple of different maps. We encourage you to look at those before you set off from the start line. You can draw on the trails onto your map. That's a good thing to do for those that are new to this. But do not ignore those supplementary maps. You might end up missing a trail or even a road that might be really useful to you that's not on the USGS overlays and the base map. Likewise, the USGS maps were made decades ago. And there are absolutely some trails that appear on those maps that do not actually really show up on the ground any longer. So that is also something to be aware of there. Okay. So I think that takes care of maps. A quick review of the schedule for the weekend. We are opening registration at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday. So feel free to come and park as we talked about, and then come get your maps. We'll do a pre-race briefing probably around 7:30 or 7:45. But check-in is really pretty quick and easy. The idea is that you and your teammates really kind of watch these videos and digest them, and maybe attend the question and answer tomorrow, which we will also post afterwards. We are shooting for an 8 a.m. start, give or take a little bit. And you have 14 hours to make it to Stockville on day one. On day two, on Sunday, we usually kind of open up maps around 5 or 5:30 a.m. And then you have from 6 a.m. till 4 p.m. to race back to your cars or to the finish line. So it ends up being 14 hours of racing on day one, 10 hours on day two. In terms of distances, this year, the course that we've laid out, much like the first year that we did this event, for anyone that did our very first Stockville, the land does require us to go a little bit longer on day one than we might like, really with the short course. That said, we've worked hard to try to, make sure that the day one distance is still reasonable, and that there are also some optional checkpoints to navigate to off of the route. So, the full course, as roughly usual, can expect 28 miles or so, depending on your route. You may end up going longer than that, depending on the route that you go. And the short course mandatory route is approximately 17 miles, right? So a little over a mile an hour for travel to complete the short course on day one. Day two, we are looking at about 20 miles for the full course on day two, and about 12 miles for the minimum mandatory course for day two. As I alluded to, we may need to kind of shift some of those distances a little bit, but we will obviously clarify all of that on Saturday morning as well. Okay. Safety. So our biggest concern with fall events is that we are sharing the woods with hunters. The forest is aware of this. We have run this fall event many times before. One extra requirement that is especially important is that everybody comes prepared to wear orange, and you need to really be wearing orange. It can't just be like an orange bandana hanging out of your pocket. It can't be just like an orange headband. Like, you really need to be wearing some kind of orange shirt or vest, or something like that. And it really needs to be something that ideally can be seen from multiple sides, right? So, an orange shirt hanging out of the back of your pack is great if somebody is behind you, but if no one can see things from the front, then that's not really sufficing. Okay. We do have a box of orange kind of pinny style vests, or yeah, basically, vests that we are happy to lend out, though we would prefer everybody to bring their own as well. You may be more comfortable in something a little nicer than what we have as well. Okay. So please take that seriously. Beyond the risks of being out in the woods in the fall and sharing the space, I think the leaves will start coming down. So looking at where you're stepping, right, watching your footing. Pennsylvania is pretty rocky for those that haven't done our races before. People often remark on how rocky Pennsylvania can be. So really kind of watching your footing when you are off trail, especially, is a big safety concern for us. So just taking care of yourself and making sure you're not putting yourself at more risk when traveling off trail. Private property in parts of the course, especially on chunks of day one, please just be respectful of private property. There's some spots kind of early in day one, and then kind of again at the end in particular, where you will definitely probably encounter private property lines. So just being really respectful of those and making sure that you're honoring that and giving those clear space. I don't know that this is a particularly snake heavy area, and we're kind of getting into the season where they are probably starting to head toward dens, but it's definitely early enough in the fall still where we might still see some of our timber rattlers out there. So especially on high ground, especially on some of the rocky areas up on top of the ridges and such, just being aware of your footing, and keeping an ear out for our timber rattlers is a wise thing to do. Beyond that, like thermal is always our single biggest concern, and it remains true this time. Some of you may ask about some of the items on the gear list and feel like you could live without them. But some of them are really intended for that worst case scenario where you actually become immobilized out in the woods, off of a trail, off of a road, somewhere where it's going to take us potentially hours to actually help get you out safely. In those kinds of scenarios, especially if this were to happen, say at the end of day one, when it's 8 or 9 o'clock at night and it's dark and it's getting cold, we need you to have enough gear to really keep yourself warm enough to wait and be safe from a thermal perspective. So please take all of that really seriously as well. Last I had looked, it looked like the weather forecast was pretty good in terms of it being a dry weekend, though I haven't seen an update this evening. So hopefully that will not be an issue that we have to contend with. I don't think you can expect to get all that wet on this year's course. Someone always likes to ask that question. There's no like planned deep water crossings or anything like that. Of course, like you may get creative and hit spots of the course where there is some deeper creek water or something like that. But I think you can probably assume that you'll stay relatively dry up above your ankles or knees. However, that said, again, mostly for folks that haven't necessarily raced our events before, it is not atypical to wake up on Sunday morning and have the woods be pretty wet just from overnight condensation. And especially with the temperatures being what they are, you can get saturated very quickly when you're bushwhacking in our woods. And that can actually very quickly lead to kind of issues with your temperature dropping and potentially worst case lead to hypothermia. This is one reason I think we have rain pants as a required piece of gear for this. So it's just something to be cognizant of for Sunday morning, especially, is the woods may be wet. Hopefully not, but we want to be prepared for that. So I think with that, I think that's for the most part what we have to cover. We do use traditional, again, mostly for people that are new to either the sport or to rootstock or this event. All of the checkpoints will be traditional orienteering flags. So you can expect kind of the standard 11-inch by 11-inch orange and white flags at, I think, every single checkpoint this year. We also like to hang backup ribbon. For this event, we've got red surveyor's tape at just about every checkpoint. And that red surveyor's checkpoint is self-correcting. So for example, if you arrive at checkpoint A, it will say CPA. on one end of the ribbon, and on the other end of the ribbon, there will be some kind of numerical code, usually like a one-digit number or letter. If you were to get to a spot and not see an orienteering flag, look for that red surveyor's tape. There's a good chance that will still be there. Occasionally flags go missing either from people or from animals, but the flagging tends to still be there. If you get there and you can find neither, there's a good chance you're not where you think you are, okay? We also have trackers this year, so we can always check and see if you've been to each control that way as well. Okay, so keep all of that in mind. I think that just about does it for today. Again, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, we will be doing a live discussion on Facebook and answering questions. So hopefully you can share this with teammates or friends that you know are doing the race. Make sure everybody has had a chance to digest all this information, and then come prepared with questions for tomorrow. We look forward to speaking with you tomorrow evening, and are looking forward even more to next weekend when we get to see you all in person and have fun in the woods. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good night.